Hey there, Clear Lake peeps. Rosling, I'm with Clear Lake Guide Service with my report on Clear Lake for March 11th, 2025. How's it going out there? Before I get into the conditions, I just want to share with all you people who fish up here or are planning to fish up here. Springtime is a tough time around here. The lake starts fishing small. People try to start crowding into areas. Pretty soon tempers start to flare. It's just fishing. Don't be one of those guys. Be like the rest who just learn to get along. Already this year, there's a couple of really bad examples of stuff that's happened that are just completely uncalled for. Realize that depending on how far you go, if you're involved in one of these things, and you're certainly the instigator of it, you will be called by the sheriff. The sheriff's department will be called, because we're just not going to tolerate it. It's just fishing. If you're tournament angler on tournament angler, fight it out, who cares? But when you're, a tournament angler or a non-tournament, it doesn't make any difference. If you're pushing the boundaries of being polite, sharing the water, we just don't have any place for that here. So it's going to be a rough couple of weeks, if not a month. But please, behave yourself. That's all I'm going to ask. Behave yourself. So, okay. Now, public service announcement done. Conditions. Since the last time that I've been out, which was yesterday, and we've been out, I think, 3 or 4 days since our last report. Water temperature has been as low as 52 in the mornings from what I've seen to as high as 57 in the afternoons. I can tell you right now that with the way it feels today and looking forward to a couple more mid to high 30 degree mornings, and we've got one, I think Thursday or one day this week, they're forecasting the possibility of snow. I'm sure it's not going to amount to much, but what that tells you, it's cold. It tells you the water temperature is going to start to cool, especially if we don't have any sun. So look for the water temperatures. It's kind of been, I think Bob talked about it, and I think Zach talked about it as well. It's just, the water temps just go like this. So at least for right now, the water temps are warm enough in the afternoons that, there's fish moving up and moving around, and they're getting pretty shallow. So that's your water temperature. Water clarity, all around the upper end of the lake, from what I saw, it has kind of a stain to it. It's not bad. I mean, you can see 1.5 to 2.5 feet, depending on where you are. Admittedly, I have not been into Rodman or the mouth of Rodman. It's probably a little bit worse there, but still, I'm guessing at least right now, it's still probably got at least close to a foot of visibility. Down in the Rattlesnake and Redbud Arm, I could see in some areas, as much as 3 feet, 3.5 feet. I've heard that lower down by closer to Redbud, there's some really clear water down there. Don't know how long that's going to last. With what we've got going on as far as weather for the remainder of this week, looks like the wind's going to be blowing all over the place, and it also looks like we're going to be getting, the forecast is for almost 2 inches of rain between now and Sunday, I believe it was. our creek's running, Adobe's running. Most of the creeks that I see that, typically have running water in them, they at least have some water running in them right now, which means you're going to see some muddy water coming down in the next, by this weekend for sure. Don't know how bad it's going to be. Supposedly 2 atmospheric rivers are headed this way. That's the weather guessers, how accurate they are. So lake level 7.67 as of today. Expect it to go higher. They've been holding it pretty steady all week, but if we get 2 inches of rain, it's going to come up. I can't tell you how much. That's not my job. Just don't know. Typically what happens if we don't have a lot of wind during some of these events, this muddy water comes out of these creeks, and the coves that are adjacent to the creeks stay clean or relatively clean compared to the water coming out. If the wind's switching directions and blowing all over the place, then all bets are off. So the events for this weekend, the big one is the 37th Annual Chamber of Commerce Team Tournament, which is held out of somewhere in Lakeport. Sorry, I didn't check the details, so I don't know if it's going out of Library Park or if it's going out of the casino, but it's somewhere up here. You can sign up as late as Friday evening. It's just a fun tournament. So as long as, heck, everybody's catching 10-pounders and everybody's catching 30-pound bags, right? So you may as well throw your dice, see what comes out on the table. So we're all over the board today, I'm telling you. A little bit tired, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, it's a good tournament. It's generally well run. And it really harkens to where I started out the video. Most of these tournament guys, and it goes back to the days when I was fishing them too, we figured out a way to get along. It's a weekend. You're going to have weekend fishermen out there, whether they're local or from out of town. You got to understand that people have driven here from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, wherever, just to fish, just to be here and fish. They heard about almost 16-pound fish being caught. Everybody wants a piece of that. Everybody wants to, come out and take a shot at it. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of really good fish being caught. We're catching some okay fish for Clear Lake. I think our biggest fish is 7.5 or 8 pounds. We've had some, mid 20-pound limits, some 20-pound limits, some 11-pound limits. Some days we didn't get a limit. And that's just the way the lake is fishing right now. It's kind of not really Clear Lake being Clear Lake, but it's the new Clear Lake being New Clear Lake. We have, just myself, we had close to 50 fish a day on Saturday. Nothing big. In fact, our biggest fish was a 2.5-pound crappie, if that tells you something. But it was a fun day. Turned around on Sunday the next day, and granted the wind was blowing and I just didn't really want to fight it that hard, and some of the places already had a lot of boats sitting on them. We only had one fish the next day, and we worked hard for that one fish. So I've talked to enough people at the boat ramps to know that not everybody is whacking them. The stories are good, and the stories that are being told, I believe, are true. People are catching these fish, but it's also the part that they're not really talking loudly about is it's very inconsistent. It's easy to sit and talk about a 30-pound limit. It's a lot harder to talk about the fact that you couldn't catch a limit. And the same people are doing the same thing. So if you get here and you're fishing and struggling, it's a pretty big boat and it's got a lot of people in it. So look for some pretty good weather changes, kind of squirrely. You know, it's funny because a month ago when I looked at the long range for March looked pretty tame. Now all of a sudden it's not looking quite so tame, although I do see some 70-degree days down the road. So, you know, these fish will do some weird things. Some of them are going to move up shallow, which they already have. And with these weird weather fronts coming through, they'll back off. Some of them won't. Some of them will just stay there. So, you know, this week, we caught fish on our best baits were underspins by far. And we used multiple weights and multiple styles, 3.3 Kitex, 3.8 Kitex. We did catch some rip bait fish and a few drop shot fish. So, you know, that's kind of what we threw around. Jim and I were out fishing, like I said, yesterday, and he threw swim bait around, but never really got bounced on it. So there seems to be, the bite is very window oriented, or at least that's what it appears. And like that first hour in the morning, I'm told, is a pretty good hour where there's some pretty good activity up to and including even seeing some chasing fish around in some areas. And honestly, that's kind of typical for March. I mean, I don't know how many times when we were pre-fishing for the what used to be called the Holder Ford tournament in mid-March, you'd go in and some of these bays, you know, the first hour of the morning, you see fish chasing all over the place. You'd see the entire bay, whether they were chasing carp or hitch or shad or whatever it was. And then, you know, as soon as it got light, everything stopped. Sounds like that's what's happening right now. I can't verify it because I'm still in the mode of getting out on the water at 9 o'clock. And honestly, right now, from, you know, after that first hour in the morning, probably till 11 o'clock, almost noon, it's pretty tough fishing. At least I don't hear anybody really talking about doing well. And my own experience over the last 3 or 4 weeks has been that. From 12 o'clock on, not too bad. It's been pretty good. You know, we've been staying out till 4:30, 5 o'clock. And usually when we quit, we're still catching fish. So if you're not fishing a tournament, you can kind of gear yourself and plan around the fact that, you know, you're better off probably doing one of two things: sleeping in and then getting a start out mid-morning, fish until dark, or get up early, fish that first hour or so, come back somewhere, go grab breakfast, then go back out to spend the rest of the day. So anyway, that's what's going on from my perspective. Please be patient out there. Be nice to the people around you. We don't need any fights on the water, and we don't need any other nonsense that's already happening. So now's as good a time as any to nip it in the bud. We'll talk to you next week.